What's up, y'all? This is Wesley Hamilton. Catch me on Rebuilding the Beast with Festus. We are actually having an amazing conversation about how to take control over your life and ownership over your mind.
Hey guys, welcome to Rebuilding the Beast. I'm your host, Festus Azili, NBA player turned podcast host. And on this show, I'm going to have a lot of my inspiring friends come on to share with you their rebuilding journeys. I hope you can take the tips from their lives and apply it to your life as well. Oh, and don't forget to hit subscribe, like, comment, share with a friend. All the things. All right, I'll see you guys soon. What's up, bro?
I'm tucked out. How are you?
Yo, I feel like I've been running around all morning, man. Welcome, man. Welcome to the spot.
Hey.
I got Postmates in one hand, you know. This is how we feel out here, man. My joke is just natural. You know, it made me realize the power of this platform. So I wanted to use it to be able to amplify
Nice
stories
crib.
like yours. Oh, it's home. It's home.
Nice little spot. Little work. Okay.
Yeah, welcome, man. Can I get you some water or anything? The studio's over here.
Nice.
But yeah, I just decided to turn, this is one of the bedrooms into a studio
Nice.
while I was here. And to sit here and just have these conversations, man. I'm gonna grab you some water.
Right on.
Bob, Wesley.
Wesley, nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Oh man, yo, Wes, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Rebuilding the Beast. Dude, I'm so hyped up right now. You have no idea, man. This is I've been waiting on this interview for a long time.
Nice.
And I'm actually happy that it took as long as it did, because over the last year, just as much as I've been able to educate myself on, gun violence and all the things, but also just wanting to understand deeper now, because initially when I started this podcast, I just wanted people to tell their stories. Now I understand that you can use your story to help other people even more. And that is what this platform is about.
Yeah.
So tell me, man, what does Rebuilding the Beast mean to you?
Oh man, Rebuilding the Beast. At least the way I look at this phrase is, and I'm going off of my life. Like I believe
exactly,
like I was reborn. Right? So like I feel like when you rebuild something, you're creating a new identity, a new personality. You're not just going back into the same person, because you wouldn't have to rebuild something that if it was already fixed, right? And so that's where I say it's like rebuild reminds me of rebirth.
I feel that for you too, though. I feel that rebirth for you. So before we get into the incident that changed your life when you were 24, I want to take it back to Kansas City.
Yeah.
That's where you were born and raised. You moved out of your mom's when you were 16.
Yep.
You said you became too much to handle. I know that story very well myself. Tell me about life back then. What was life like?
The best way to put life growing up till the age of 24, till things changed, was that I was a product of my environment. And of course, I elaborate, meaning that I was in a community that lacked leadership, had no male influence, and, crime and drugs was the main thing that, at least for individuals that I resemble, in a sense, skin color and mindset back then, those were the things that we fed off of. I always try to break it down and say that I was born into a system that was designed for me. And that's how I became a product of my environment, because all the things around me, all the things that help bring value to my life for me to, move forward wasn't there. I got into negative, like, man, I hated my life. Like when I say product of environment, I think of a person that is lost. That's a lost soul. When you're a product of your environment, there's no positivity being a product of your environment. There is no hope. You're following the path of someone else. You don't have originality. You're not authentic, and it's sometimes not even your fault. It's just the environment that you've been around that lacks somebody that you can find yourself following their path you know, outside of that. Crab in a bucket mentality was my community.
You said no male role models, role models in general. What about dad?
Like I love my father. He's in my life now, but growing up he wasn't, and it took me a long time to understand, the generational trauma that black men carry, and how some don't even have the strength to be fathers because they're battling their own wounds that they couldn't admit to.
Ooh.
And but growing up, I had a lot of resentment for my father for not being around. He would just come in and out of my life, and he was making choices that, until I started to make some of the similar choices, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And so I always look at, like, I have a stepfather, but you grow without your father, you don't want nobody else to raise you. At least for me, that's how it was. And I was a teenager by the time my step pops came in. Like, again, love them dearly, love them all dearly, but my mindset on life changed where I push out more love than hate anyway. And I have understanding, right? As a kid, you might not understand what parents are going through or why they won't be in your life or things. You just want them there, and you create resent. And so I think for me, that was it. Lack of guidance from a male figure pushed me into the life I chose, because what was male influence was all the drug dealers on the streets. They were doing the positive things, though. They were taking care of home. They were, at least uplifting in the community, coming to grandma's house. Like, a lot of people look at things so negative, and I'm smiling when I talk about it now, because, like, the path was wrong, but who gave them a better one? So for me, yeah, it wasn't the positive role model, but it was a role model.
It was a role model. There's a picture that you had shared when you did your TED Talk, where you flipping the camera off, and you were talking about how, like, you look at this picture and you see the darkness in the eyes, and you felt like at this stage in your life, I can't remember how old you were in this picture.
I was around about 2021.
In this picture, you said, like, I felt like I wouldn't even make it to 21.
Yes.
Because I would either be dead or in jail, or, whatever it is. Talk to me about that period.
Man, I laugh, I smile as much as possible these days, especially when it comes to my story, because I feel like you haven't truly healed if you're not smiling about it.
Dude, I see you smiling. I'm just like, and people do this with me too, because they look at me now and they're like, yo, like, I can't imagine you ever being in a bad situation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's amazing. I'm happy that you feel that way, because I've healed and I've rebuilt myself. And this is the whole point of this show, is that you can change. You can heal yourself from the traumas that you've dealt with.
Yes.
But in talking about this period, I'm sure there's kids out there, or there's people out there who are in that phase of their lives.
So I believe that I embodied stereotype. I did. I think that's the main reason why I was a product of my environment. I'm an 88 baby.
89.
And I feel like, I came right into a time where, like, the whole paradigm for, like, black men and black people itself changed. It was the crack epidemic, all these things. Hip hop started coming out, and the only reason why I reference that is because a lot of those things created the mindset that you wouldn't live past 21 as a black man. And you hear it a lot. You hear it in music. You hear people say, like, I made it past 25. I'm grateful. You hear all the, like, especially in music. I love music anyway, but you hear it. It don't matter. Year after year, you hear artists talking about how they made it past a certain age. And it's like, you don't hear other people from different communities, not as much, speaking from that.
I never thought about it.
Man, like, I'm glad I made it to 30. No, your whole life you knew you was gonna make it to 30. But for us, we didn't. Every day you seen somebody die in the streets. Like, I didn't even understand that was traumatizing. That's how crazy it was. And when we get to my situation, and show how much I accepted the fact. But that's the thing. I had big on manifesting. So it was literally like I was manifesting my demise. And I feel like most men, and we know words are powerful, but most young African American men, they don't believe they're going to make it past 21. And a lot of it is based on the things that was already put into society. Like what I said of not making it past 21 has been something that has been repeated from individuals probably for the last few generations. You know, and it's like, man, when you start losing friends at the age of 12 and 13 and, you know, over gun violence and stuff, then what else do you have, right? Like you believe that. You know, you believe it because it's been a reality so much in your life to not see nobody surpass a certain age.
Let's get into your story. Let's talk about it, man. 5 days after your 24th birthday, your life changed dramatically. Can you talk us through what happened?
Oh yeah, man. My life changed, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, which I know now. But at that time, I just turned 24. I'm a single father. So when I was a little bit after, like I turned 21, I found out I was gonna have a little girl, and how things end up transpiring, ended with me getting sole custody of her. And of course, I'm in the streets. I'm deep in the streets, so I didn't understand how to be a father. But of course, like most people, when they haven't had parents growing up, they want to be a better parent than the ones they had. So that was my mentality, like, all right. And I think that was probably the thing that saved me, you know, going up into what I'm about to share, because by this time now I wasn't just in the streets. I wasn't just out there selling dope, sharing a negative mindset, doing whatever to die or be in jail. I was trying to raise a little girl, so I had got a full-time job, trying to build a relationship with someone, like all these different things, just so that I could make sure that I was setting the tone for this little girl, because I didn't want her to be, as innocent as she was, I didn't want her to be a victim to my situations and circumstances. Now, as I said, I was trying to do a relationship thing. So I ended up being in a relationship for a few years during this time, and we let it go. And the person that I was dating, and you know, this is important to share, like especially from like a black perspective. If we not healed, our relationships are very traumatizing. You know, and I believe like that whole relationship was full of trauma. Like we was just hitting each other with. I mean, it was toxic. You know, that's one of those things that people share for like 2-3 years. Toxic was one of those words, right?
But the thing about it is, like, if you don't know, like, sometimes there's things that I've seen from my past relationships where I thought that was love.
Yeah.
I thought being jealous in a relationship meant that you love this person. This is the way you care about somebody. But that's not healthy, which is what you learn when you heal.
Yeah, exactly. And so this situation was one of those, you know, back and forth, off and on, same story most people have probably in beginning relationships before. And so we cut it off. I'm good with it. And she, the lady I was talking to at the time, she told me she was pregnant. Right. So here we go. So as a person that just got custody of my daughter, I knew that I wasn't trying to go back to this relationship, but I also didn't want to build this, you know, opportunity to be a father again in a way that I did with my daughter's mom. Like, I would never want to be a single parent if I had that choice, right? Like, and so this was like, okay, how can we have a better relationship starting off, because this is what I know. Well, I'm very spiteful, and I wasn't full of growth at that time. So as just, and I feel like a lot of people relate to the toxicness of this story. And it's like, you know, change phone numbers, delete everything, like no contact, all of that. So spiteful West, I pull up, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, you pregnant? Like, I'm gonna pull up and stuff, and I'm gonna talk to you about it. And this had only been a few weeks after we broken up. So upon arrival, I witnessed the lady going into her house with another male. And so I'm like, you know, I'm already blood boiling. I haven't even learned how to control my emotions or anger, so I'm very bothered. And just like you said, like certain things you thought was love, I didn't even know I was in love until I felt hurt.
Wow.
Like, it hit me so hard. I'm like, God, you know, like I was ready to let go of everything, and now I was hurt. And I didn't know if I was hurt due to the emotions of knowing like you could be pregnant, due to the fact that we just broke up and there's another. It could have been all of that. But all I knew was that I was standing my ground.
Wow.
So I went to the point of like now going into make sure that wasn't me.
Oh, that's all good.
I went to the point of now like, okay, how do I communicate this situation? How do I actually go in and talk? And I didn't know, so I went in there with anger, man. I went out, hopped out the car, man. What's this? Da da da. The guy goes in the house. Me and him never had a conversation. So let's start there, okay? Me and the guy that went in the house with her, we never had a conversation. He looked out the window the whole time, literally just looking through the blinds. Me down at, I'm 5'5". All right, bro. I'm 5'4", 5'5" on a good day. That's how I always share it. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm short. So I have this also this.
Yeah, you got this extra.
I'm triggered.
Yeah.
Dude, tall. He was a big dude. I'm like I'm gonna knock dude down. That's how I felt. So you could really see that emotion outside that window. Scared him. No, it did. You know what I mean? He called somebody else. In the same mist, I'm from Kansas City. I felt everything. I felt the energy, and I also felt the fact that I wasn't leaving. I didn't have no gun on me. I just went grocery shopping, so literally had groceries in my trunk. But I called my friend over too, because I'm like, well, I ain't leaving, so I need you to come over with a gun because I don't have one right now.
Damn.
And so all this happened in a little bit, 30 minutes. My best friend pull up. He pull up with his gun, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. Well, he knows the person inside the house, right? So guy comes outside. Him and my best friend talk. My best friend like, listen, bro, my bro here, because she said she pregnant. Like, he's straight to the point. Like, man, I don't want none of this beef over this. So that's kind of how my best friend brought it. Squashed the issue, you know what I mean? Like, literally squashed it. I start walking back to my car, ready to leave. I get shot 2 times. The first bullet hit me in my chest, and I turned, because most people, I hope you never get shot, but when something hits you, you go into shock. Your body, everything changes. So I didn't feel the pain from a bullet. I just knew something happened. That's how it was. It was just like life stopped for a second. And it was like, I turned. Like, instinct made me turn a certain direction. I turned that direction, and I seen a face that I had never seen a day in my life. Like, man, in my mind, like, man, who is this dude? You know what I mean? And he shoots me again. I hit the ground, and next thing I know, my best friend and the guy starts having a shootout. So now, as I'm laying down, I'm watching boom, boom, all this gunfire going back and forth, back and forth. It's just crazy. And we're in an apartment complex at that. So you're hearing people scream. It's daylight. It feels like a movie, right? And I'm on the ground just laying there. All of a sudden, everything died down. Both guys hop into separate cars and skirt out. And I have to bring this up, like, me laying on the ground and them skirting out, I thought they was running me over. Like, I couldn't move. At that point, I didn't know something had changed in my body physically. I just knew.
Is it pain? What are you feeling?
It wasn't pain at all, man. I think it was just something had changed, and I thought I was dying. Like, I knew, like, again, I thought, I'm only going to live to be 21, dead or in jail. I had seen all these people die in my life. I had witnessed people get shot 1 time and die. So I was shot twice. I'm laying on the ground. So everything started changing. My legs was gone. So if people don't know, like, the incident itself caused me to be paralyzed from the waist down. I have a spinal cord injury. So at that point, my legs, I couldn't feel them. So I'm like, so by the time they skirt off, my best friend come back over. He like, man, what's going on, bro? Like, trying to have that man-to-man talk, but he's scared too, in a sense. Wow. And I'm like, man, I can't feel my legs. But I'm like, I'm about to die. And he like, I know, bro. And that's kind of how the conversation went. Literally. But then it doesn't stop there. So then, of course, they trying to call, paramedics and things like that. They take forever. So
he didn't think to put you in the car and...
Man, I was just laying on that ground like that, and my body was immobile.
I'm saying he didn't think to put you in the car. And...
Man, he was trying to be on alert to see if they was coming back. It was just, the way we pulled the apartment complex, it was one way in, one way out. Wow. So you think about a shootout happening, the guys skirt out, they could have been sitting at the exit. You know what I mean? And Kansas City is like the Wild West in a sense.
I didn't know anything about Kansas City till now. That's all I know. I didn't know y'all had all this.
Hey, well, you know what? Just look at the Midwest and you look at Kansas City, St. Louis, and Chicago. We all in the same line. That means we all got the same mindset. So that's how I always try to reference this to people. If you ever heard of Kansas City, you might have heard of St. Louis. Haven't heard of St. Louis, I know you probably heard of Chicago. And so if you think about it, we're all in the same line, same highway, get us to the same place. You know, so again, that's how we thought about it. So we're waiting on the paramedics. Again, I'm just thinking I'm going to die this whole time. And then suddenly a guy came up to me. You know, he came up to me. Well, the girl came up to me first. She was trying to hold all the blood on my body. People know, because she did come back around. You know, it wasn't like she just was nonchalant to it. She knew something had happened. She came to try to help. I kind of pushed her away, like, I didn't want you around. I'm gonna die. I don't want to see you the last person. That's how I felt. So this guy came, and this is where the shift happens, right? This is where I want people to really take this grasp of this story and this journey of, as I continue sharing, of the ability to have people come into your life and speak words into you that give you power. Right? And give you hope. I'm laying on this ground. I know I'm going to die. My best friend has confirmed it.
But yo, right? I know. Jeez.
My best friend has
kind of hope or nothing, man. It's like, nah, hold on. Say something.
When you live in a hopeless community, it's hard to understand what hope is, you know, or faith or anything. And so,
I feel that way.
You know, we went with it. And this guy came, he grabbed my hand, and he said, man, I'm going to pray for you. And like he prayed, I don't remember everything that he said, but I knew at that time, maybe I didn't think I was going to die. You know, like I had hope again. And now at this point, now I'm just thinking like, and I was very hateful because I was negative even at this point of being shy. I wasn't like laying on the ground like, oh God, give me life back. I'm like, man, why you take me from my daughter? Like, I was talking like that. Like, man, I just got custody of this little girl. Like, you gonna take me from her? Like, man, I ain't shit for this. That's how I felt. And the paramedics came. I got in there, got me to the hospital. And I remember the last thing I said before, like, I woke up. The doctor asked me my name, and the only thing I said was help me. And I didn't even think I would ever say help me, especially when I was good with dying, right? But that little bit of hope made me want to pursue more at that time. I ended up waking up. I was in ICU. And again, I didn't even know what had happened yet. I know I shared it with the audience, but that's so y'all can understand the perspective. But I didn't even know what happened yet. I just had a tube in my throat, and I just saw my family just walking back and forth crying. You know, just crying. Every time they saw me, they cried, you know, and didn't know what happened. And I would try to put a tube out my throat. They would just induce me back, go back to sleep. So about 2-3 weeks, I was just in those medical induced comas. And then when I finally came out was when the reality hit. And the reality hit was that my life had changed forever. That now I have a T11, T12 incomplete spinal cord injury due to gunshot wounds. And that I'll be paralyzed from the waist down.
Nah, but don't even break it to me like that. Like, because I have some partners who have also had some situations like that. Matter of fact, I had somebody on the podcast earlier, like last season, the season before, it got shot while he was driving away. And when it hit him, he didn't even know he got shot. So he's driving away, and at some point he's like, yo, I'm trying to hit the brakes. My foot is on the gas. I'm trying to hit the brakes. I can't move my leg. And that's how he crashed, and eventually he's like, man, like, that's how I realized I can't move my legs. Then I had somebody else on the podcast who just had this disease that just made him paralyzed. And so he was trying to move, like he was literally on the hospital bed, like, I can't move any part of my body. Did you have that same feeling?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Like, you know, that's why I'm like, the reality said was that once they told me what I was diagnosed with.
But you didn't know before this? Like, you didn't try to move your legs before this or move your arm?
They would come in. So I would say like this was probably like this was the phase that made things unknown, really. You know, like I probably would accept it if I woke up and they like, listen, bro, you got shot, you paralyzed, you gonna be in a wheelchair. And instead they was coming, can you feel this? Can you do this? So I just had hope. Like I thought I was gonna be that miracle baby, right? Like I'm gonna start walking again, like, cause the doctors are coming in here. One, they're trying to figure it out for themselves, but for me, I'm like, oh, y'all must know something, right? So yeah, it I don't think it was as traumatizing for me until I got out the hospital. But while I was in the hospital, I had so much care that it took my mind off the real situation. You know, like, yeah, I knew my legs didn't work. I mean, I went through times of beating them up. Like, I'd be crying and I hate this and why me? Like, I went through all of that. You know, it's not, but it was that still the nurses would come in, they'd roll me over, do these. So, like, okay, y'all take care of me. And then got right out, did same thing in rehab, right? So I'm in denial this whole time. Like, I'm like, I know I'm paralyzed. Like, I know this ain't working. Everything has changed. But I have to be able to walk again. And this is the story about a lot of people that are paralyzed. Like, you want to walk again. But a lot of it for me was that everybody else wanted me to walk again. Right? Like, nobody could accept the fact that my life changed. All they could do was see that I was different. And so they treated me as such for me to feel like I needed to walk again to make myself feel accepted to everybody. So that was where the reality hit. Was like, man, ain't nobody even gonna accept me. And then I became a burden to everybody when I got out the hospital. So, like, my first year of being injured was defeating. I had all them wild questions of why it happened. The girl found out she lied about her pregnancy. Right?
Jeez.
And so that was something that I had to mentally try to understand and handle, and then go back and take accountability of my actions and say, man, it wasn't even being nothing, you drove away. Like, that was powerful for me to understand that.
How though, man? Like, you talk about how you're in the middle and you're about to die and you're angry at God. So you're angry at everybody at this point. Because you're angry at God. Like, you're angry at everybody. You're angry at the dude that shot you. You're angry at the woman about the pregnancy. You're angry about the situation that you're in. I was in the wheelchair for 6 months, 3 years ago. That's actually the birth of this whole thing. Is I just played in the NBA finals. Life is good. I'm about to get paid. All these things are happening. And a few months later, I had a bad, whatever was happening. I had bad injury, bad accident. I was in the wheelchair for 6 months. The reason why I'm asking you to break it to me the way I am is because I wake up. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna be good. First week, second week, third week, I'm really struggling now. I can't move my legs. All this stuff is happening. And I remember one morning, this will actually be good for you because this is kind of part of the thing that happened for me. One morning I wake up and I can't move my legs. And I'm trying to do this little rehab exercises. And it's like, man, I was just here. I was just doing this. Now I'm watching everybody else go on to win and to play and do all the things. And I'm here. And so my mentality was, damn, why me? And I'm crying. I'm like, I don't really even cry at this point, but like, I couldn't help it, bro. I'm like, but I'm crying. Like, I'm like, man. And at the time I'm living with my mom because somebody got to take me, take care of me, take me to the shower, bring food for me, all this stuff. And now, like you said, a burden. And I'm talking, and my mom comes in, African mom, and so they always speak wisdom. They always speak in parables. She says, "Do you know that you're strong?" I said, "Man, I'm really not trying to hear this right now. I don't feel strong right now." She said, "How do you know that you're strong?" I said, "You know you're strong because you can carry the weight when it's the heaviest." Everybody has problems. In fact, being alive means that you have problems. The only man that doesn't have problems is the man that's 6 foot under. Yeah. And he wishes he had problems. God gave you your mountain so you can show others it can be moved. Again, God gave you your mountain so you can show others it can be moved. I don't know what happened in that moment because it was just perspective. It was this power that I got in this moment that just changed everything for me. I felt like, I will win. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how it's going to go, but I will win. What is that for you? What was that moment that made you go from, because I see this dude in front of me now. I'm like, dog, like there's no way, man. I know you have been through, like people, you see smiles, but me, I see the stories. Yeah. How do you get to this point?
You know, that's a great question because the journey. So I was shot in 2012 January. So I've just celebrated 10 years this year, and so my first 4 years, 4 to 5 years, was very, very like defeating. I was defeated at that time. So that's the journey, like what you just shared with me. You know, the little time of like. So I went back to work, right? Like I went back to my full time job. I went to all this my first year. I was 250 pounds. I was not active, healthy in no way. Like I was a big guy my whole life, like 5'4", 5'5". I was about 200 pounds. Like I was cool being a little short, chubby dude. I was. I wasn't an ugly dude, so I was good with it. You know what I mean? But you know, getting paralyzed and being in a wheelchair, your weight will take a toll over you. And after a while, I couldn't work no more. You know, I went from 8 hours a day. Of course, I probably sped up trying to get back to a normal life. I went to 8 hours a day to nothing. And what I was dealing with was the way people saw me, especially the people that knew me prior. Right? Like when something changes, everybody, it's that look on their face. Unknown, concern, but also just that you're different, you know, and so I had this thing by the first year called a pressure ulcer, and it's something that you get if you just sit too long. You know, pressure sores. And mine was on my tailbone, so that led to 2 years of bed rest. I ended up being on bed rest for 21 hours a day. And then when I talk about defeat, I was defeated. You know, I was at the lowest point of my life, and the only thing the doctors could tell me that could heal myself was protein. Adding more protein in my diet, and I was foreign to that language. You live in a community where there's food deserts, as people use as terms now. You know what I mean? Then what am I supposed to understand was protein? It surely wasn't shared in the school that I was in, right? And so, remember again being lost with all this information. I was drinking Ensure as the drink, and and I remember like my grandmother drank that drink. So for me mentally, I couldn't drink it. You know, I'm like, man, you giving me this drink. Older people drink. Like, man, I don't want this drink. You know, like, is this the only way? And I was hopping out the bed one day, out the hospital bed, getting in my wheelchair. My daughter was in a doctor's appointment. She looked at me, and here, this is the reason why I shared, like, even the story about, like, my daughter earlier. She looked at me, and she said, you getting in your Superman chair? And I think it's a phrase or a book or something, like when God winks at you. Like, and I feel like I was winked at the day I was shot, and then I was winked at again with my daughter, in the sense of really giving. My daughter spoke life into me, and she might have been 3 years old at that time. Like, she gave me strength when all I seen was weakness. Like, I was at the lowest point of my life trying to figure this stuff out and couldn't figure it out. Like, there was no way. I felt disgusted about myself. I hated what I was going through. I had all these bandages. I had all these surgeries. Like, I felt like my life wasn't going uphill. It was definitely going down. And then I had this little girl that no matter what I'm facing and what I see, she saw Superman. I thought about everybody around me my whole life never spoke life into me, right? And it just, all these things start coming. I'm like, I gotta be Superman. That was it. Like, in my mind, I'm like, that was the change. Like how you say your mom came and spoke something to you. Like, my daughter looked at me, you know, and spoke it in a sense. Now, my mom was there, right? Like, my mom was there, but my mom is a strong mother where she's more like, I'm your backbone. I'm guiding you through it. But if I could say, like, those words might have helped, but they didn't help as much as like the strength that my daughter says Superman. I don't know. It was just,
so you got somebody watching you, like, yo, I got to be strong now.
I got to be strong, you know. And so to, you know, speed up the remainder of that time, I went to a local community college, took up a dietitian course.
Wow.
I was getting out the bed for 3 hours a day. So I would drive. It was about a 45-minute drive, you know, back and forth. So I would do like an hour in class and then do the rest online. But my goal at that time was to find the new me, you know, that rebuilding, that reborn. How do I become and rebirth myself after this situation? And so I had to start doing things that was different than the things I was doing before. I had to create my new normal instead of adapting to the normal that put me in this position. And so I went out and I started learning. And the moment I opened a book on nutrition, man, it changed my life. I had never understood food the way it was shown to me right there. My favorite drink was Dr. Pepper. I always tell people, like, if I was mad, give me a Dr. Pepper and a honey bun. It would calm my nerves. Wow. And then I saw how much sugar was in the soda.
Dude, it's crazy.
And that was it for me, right? Like, and that wasn't protein, right? Like, but it was one thing that when I started to realize my journey in life, because my journey in life had been the way it was because I wasn't confident in who I was. I lacked so much self-esteem because I was battling weight issues and things. Like, I accepted being big boned, but I was always called fat boy, things like that. Like, again, I had accepted it, as I shared with you. I was cool with being a short, chubby guy, right? But didn't know that those things were actually bothering me because I wasn't healthy. You know, I wasn't looking in the mirror every day I got dressed. I just knew I had a clean outfit on. You see what I'm saying? And it fit, right? Yeah. And so when I looked at the book on nutrition and the change, I started to implement that while I was on bed rest. I had my last surgery January 2015. This is literally 3 years after my injury. I was 135 pounds when they weighed me on that bed.
What was surgery for?
It was for the pressure ulcer. So, like, I had to get like a flap surgery because it wasn't healing and things like that. And so this was like the last of 6 surgeries because I had my tailbone, like all these different things. So I was healthy. So hold on, let me go into this real quick, man, because people might not understand the process of being in the hospital. So, like, for me, this was where I became aware. I was told what to do to become healthy, but I was still going through the same processes of when I was unhealthy. So I'm going in about 1.5 years, and I'm like, man, I've added all this protein. I know I'm slimming down. I'm doing about 30 minutes in the gym now. I'm adding that in there. I'm still bound to 3 hours, 21 hours a day, though, in the bed. Looked at the doctor one day, man, and said, hey, I need a second opinion. I had my surgery 2 weeks later. Here we are 6 years, 7 years now. I ain't had an issue. If I was defeated mentally, I was always going to be defeated physically. And because I became healthier within my body, it cleared my mind. And it allowed me to be a voice for myself and speak up and advocate for myself. And when I asked for that and I became healed, I jumped right into the gym. I'm not even going to lie, because when my body changed, I didn't even care so much about the physical as much as I was proud of what I was speaking. You know what I mean? And again, there was some other development outside of eating. I started listening to podcasts and, try to start reading.
Just change one thing. Your life just starts, you start being around more healthy things. It's just like, I just want to be around this. And you start being
because I want to be Superman, right? Like, again. So what do I do to now make myself feel like I'm supernatural, right? Like a superhuman or whatever, that I want to make my daughter proud. See, all I'm trying to do is be an active father. Because being paralyzed, I couldn't go take her to the park. I couldn't do none of this. I didn't think about losing weight and the career that I have now and the life I have. I just said, man, I just want to be there in those younger years to make sure that I was going to be doing what I wanted to do when I first found out I was having a little girl. And that's where the shift. So find out that I was, lost this weight. The next 2 years, man, I became an award-winning adaptive athlete, competing in bodybuilding and CrossFit all over the country. I had never lifted a weight till I got paralyzed. You know what I mean? Like, I had it was a picture of me on Men's Health, like climbing the rope, and I was like big page, full page, to the point like I'm coming from the hood, man, and like I've gotten shy. I was defeated. I was a product of my environment. But the moment I started to take control of my life and become more than my circumstances and see more, then more came my way. You know what I mean? And again, my whole goal was just to push myself to be a better version of myself. And what came with that was that I was unlocking a code. I was decoding the system that I was born into.
Man. Man, you're hitting all sorts of things in my brain right now, bro. It's amazing. But you gotta even tell me, what is the transformation? What was the transformation physically? Like, I saw you lost 100 pounds. I saw you were doing pull-ups with your wheelchair. What did you feel? What were the numbers, stats? Like,
I mean, I was 250. right? And when I got in the hospital and because I couldn't get weighed on the regular. So that's another thing as a wheelchair user. You can't just hop on a scale. So you try and lose weight and you don't even know what you're losing, right? Most people go hop on a scale every day. Cool. Right? I've worked with trainers. Go show me your weight tomorrow. Take a picture. I don't know. So again, that was a denial stage for me.
Wow.
So what happened was I was 135 pounds after these years of eating healthy. I got on a hospital bed. I lost 100 pounds, a little bit over that. But I think the biggest thing for me at that time was that I had did something I could never do, walking. That's where the shift. Most people see disability as something that's debilitating, and it lifted me past the beyond, right?
Yeah.
Like I always use the phrase of like I was disabled mentally before I ever became physically. And when I became disabled physically, it freed me mentally.
Let's talk about your daughter, Superman.
She's 13 now, bro. I don't know how much we're going to talk about right now.
Oh, yeah. No. That's awesome, man. No, I want to talk about, because that's actually funny.
If anybody know, if you know, you know.
I have a little sister. I have a little sister that's 15, and it's crazy to even say that too. I got a little sister that's 15, and during the time when I was in the wheelchair, that was my caretaker, and she was also the person who was inspiring me too, right? Just like she's inspiring you, I wonder for you, what lessons are you trying to teach her?
Good one. Man, honestly, I instilled everything that I learned after my accident to my daughter. I teach her healthy living and wellness overall. I teach her accountability. Reading, affirmations, gratitude. There's not one thing that I'm not practicing today that I'm not trying to have my daughter practice as well. If it's giving me a life beyond what I've ever seen, then I want her to be able to visualize that too. Manifesting, yes. Like that, all of those things, because that's what served me and helped me find my purpose. And so those are the lessons I teach my daughter, and then I become that example for her. She sees my battles before anybody else. People will see me, and they see smile and perfect, and after a long day being in a wheelchair, it ain't so, my body hurt. Can you give me this? Cut the light off, things like that. My daughter sees that, right? But then she also sees her father getting back up at 4 a.m. taking control of his day again, making an impact in other people's lives, and not using the things that could be defeating to me or used to be as those things that currently do it now. And so that's the best way I could use it. Like, I'm not teaching my daughter anything that I'm not teaching myself.
The manifestation, and because you've mentioned that a few times now, that's new for me. I've done it through the course of my life, and if I tell you my life story about the first time somebody took me to a basketball game, my uncle took me to a basketball game. We went to watch Kobe, actually.
Nice.
Sacramento Kings versus LA Lakers. And boy, at this point in the time, I'd never played basketball before. I didn't even know how to dribble. I didn't know how to shoot. Like, I didn't know nothing about the game. And my uncle's looking at me, he's trying to convince me because I'm tall. Everybody, you got to play basketball. He's looking at me during the game and he says, "You never know," because he's trying to convince me to play. I can't play, Uncle. Like, I try to play. They cut me from the team. I don't look good out here. It's just a bad look overall. Nobody want to pick me now. The first day they pick me because I'm tall and black. After they see me, I can't do nothing. Right. They don't want to pick me. It's embarrassing now. My uncle's still trying to convince me, like, yo, you never know. Maybe someday you'll be out here. Well, fast forward from this moment in 2015, 14 to 2012. Actually, 2012 was a big year for both of us. Right? 2012, I'm getting drafted. And it's crazy for me to think about the fact that you're having a major shift in your life at the same time. But I'm getting drafted in the NBA. 12. That's crazy. And my first game was against the LA Lakers. Against Kobe.
Wow.
So manifestation has been a part of my life, even when I didn't know it. Now I'm starting to become aware to it because, telling stories like this, learning from people. I've been to meditation retreats now. I've done a bunch of different things that I didn't know before Because I really believe that education is really the part of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have to educate yourself. You have to be aware of these things. Because if you're not aware, if you don't know what protein is, then how you going to know how to eat healthy if you don't even know what that is?
Exactly.
So, tell me about manifestation. Tell me about the gratitude journaling, the words of affirmation. How did these things come into your life? How do you practice them now?
Oh man. I have a friend that just tell me like I'm like a master manifester in a sense now. Like, cause I'm like, look, this is what I'm gonna do tonight, and watch it come tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like seriously, cause I have really dialed myself into like the universal type of language, and like really understanding the subconscious and conscious mind. You know, and so when I think about manifesting, it's just every day that you speak, you're manifesting something. If you speak negative and create negative self-talk, you're creating a life that you're living if it's negative. If you speak positivity, if you're looking more into the future and not so much focus on the past, then your future, you're already there. You know, so that's how I believe like manifestation is. Like everything that you want in the future is already there. You got to now do the work for it to come into your reality. But that's the part of the manifestation. So like I'll use a great example. Since we talking really down into my story, once my life changed and things got better and I started, my mind got clear, right? Like I did start to do affirmations. I had a friend that we would challenge each other on things. One of the first things was like waking up early. We held each other accountable. Woke up at 5 a.m. We had to call each other. You know what I mean? 5 a.m. Hey man, how you doing? You know, what affirmations, gratitude, like it was just the craziest thing, but I was ready for it. And those things made me understand life different. It made me start to understand people different, choices, because now I was creating accountability for myself. And so what I'm getting to is that my biggest manifestation that changed my life, that when I started to change the way my story was told, right, within myself. Because it's like, well, as long as I play victim within my story, I would live victim within my life, right? Like, and so I was always, I walked back to my car, I got shot, boom. All right, victim. All right, that was easy. I cut it short all the time, right? Then I started taking accountability. My actions, emotions played this. To the point, then I started speaking. And I said, man, the man that tried to take my life actually gave me life. These were just things this 2016, 2017, and I'm still on a self-awareness, self-love journey. But now I don't even have hate for him because my life has changed so much in the last few years that the 24 years was so wasted that it was him that gave me life to see my life becoming more. Even though I had something taken, the manifestation and the what I was empowering myself with was the ability to understand how people's lives and choices are one thing, but that's not my fault. But what I can do is find power within that story or change the way the story is told. And so for me, by me changing the way that story was told, I ended up perceiving something in the future. I manifested something in the future as we share, but which ultimately led to me sitting down with the man that shot me and telling him the same thing, right? Like, and so, and we'll break that down in detail when you're ready, but that was the best way I could manifest, because if people ever heard my story and they seen some of the things I did and watched me meet the man that shot me, like, oh, how did that come? Well, I spoke that years ago. I wasn't going around playing victim no more. I was literally everywhere I went. Man, that man he tried to take my life, but he blessed me. Wow. He gave me so much more to live for. You think I care about my legs not moving? No. Only time it bothers me is when accessibility is an issue. But even that doesn't bother me no more, because if I'm not celebrated, then I don't want to go somewhere where I'm tolerated, right? So like my mindset has completely changed on life itself based on somebody trying to put harm to me. So for me, I was understanding that, hey, my whole life could have been different. It was a plan. We all got a plan set, right? Yeah. And every day we get tested. See how we can deal with that. I just feel like, man, with the life and purpose that I'm living now, God, last time saying like, listen, I'm going to take something away from you because you don't need it. You don't need it to find your true purpose, and you've already manifested the life. I had already everything that I have and everything that I see in my future, man, was manifested as a young kid. It was meant, like you just said, like you was at a game manifesting something, right? Like we didn't know. My best friend tell me all the time, man, you know all that stuff you was saying you wanted. He said you didn't think you was getting it this way, right? You know what I mean? Like things that I thought I was gonna have in life, thought the streets was gonna give it to me. You know, and it went different. You know, where now, and so again, that's what I see as manifestation. Every morning I wake up and I speak how I want my life to be. I'm not allowing someone to create my life as much as I know I have the power to create my reality every step of the way. Every choice is your opportunity to create your next step, right? Like, and so for me, that's my manifestation. I speak those words. I speak what I want to see in my life. You know, I always try to joke about the houses on the hills, right? I'm not a person to say like, man, I can't wait to get a house on the hill. I'm the person that says like, my house is on the hill. I just don't know which one yet.
I'm still on that one. I'm still on that one.
You know what I mean?
I'm still
because
on that one.
it's already in the future, so you have to manifest that so that you can come and it becomes closer. When people are like, man, I saw that 10 years ago and it pops up the next day type of stuff, it was already there.
You know who I'm a big fan of that talks about this all the time is Steve Harvey. I'm a huge fan. Matter of fact, if you ever watch this show, Steve Harvey, I can't wait to meet you. Just because he was talking about, and he uses it for, he's like, dude, like, I serve a more than capable God. Like, why can't I have the things that, I'm just asking for these basic things. Like, I serve an enormous God. So he uses it in that sense. But you have talked about it in terms of the things that you're becoming. Because a lot of times we ask for something and we just don't understand that we're going to get it whatever way. You know, sometimes it might not be the way you thought. Like even me, for example, like I'm a different person than I was 3 years ago. And now it's like, okay, I fought so hard to get back to playing basketball because seeing the contrast getting bigger, you see things going on, my team going on to win more and more. And I'm like, man, like I want to be a part of this. Like I want to do this, especially because the last game I played in, I lost in the championship. And it's funny because I come back now as a broadcaster and I'm working for the same team I play for with the Warriors. And now we went on to win last year. They gave me the trophy to hold. And I felt something just release in me. I don't know what it was because I've been trying so hard, fighting so hard to get back so I can get this bad taste out of my mouth. We lost. Dude, I've been winning my whole career.
Yeah.
But because I was injured, we lost. So I hold this trophy and I send it to my best friend, what the picture looked like. He sends me a text back. I will never forget this. He said, "You look relieved." I was like, how you see that from that picture? And it was like that weight that I was carrying for the whole, I got the thing I was looking for, but I didn't get it the way that I thought.
Yes.
So for you, now we're going to get into it because I'm watching this TV show and you're getting a makeover, but then there's a point in the show where they're like, okay, like I need your blessing. Because I feel like you can't move on without this part. And these strangers bring the assailant to you, the person who shot you. And you're confronting this person. Tell me about this whole story in this situation.
Yeah, man. Of course, like I said, like my journey in life took me and opened up doors that I never thought would open. And it brought me to a point where I was on a Netflix show called Queer Eye. And season 4, episode 2. And you know, one, I didn't grow up being around 5 men, you know, that had their preference, right? And so I was I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but I was entering the unknown. I didn't know what they were going to do, like a makeover show. Like, I didn't know everything. And I'm a person that's like, until I see cameras or something actually happening, I don't know if it's real. You know, like so we could have communicated forever and I didn't know it was real. And so when they appeared, and we started to have this conversation, we started talking. And one of the first things that I told them out of everything else was that the man that tried to take my life gave me life. And so they came in to help make my life more comfortable. As if anyone watches it or has watched it, I dealt with accessibility issues in my home that I was there for years. Like, I just adapted to things, right? Like, fashion wasn't my thing. I didn't really dress a lot because I didn't know how to dress in a chair. So that really impacted my life in many ways. But then, having the opportunity to meet the man that shot me, for most people, that would have been the most scariest situation. For me, I was already welcome in it. I remember when, because of course it's TV and stuff, man. So, now that it's all over, I've said it in an interview or two. I just remember that day they asked me, when I told them that affirmation, at least the way I look at it, they said, man, that was very powerful, but would you ever meet the man that shot you? And I'm like, well, here's his information. From the day I got shot, I knew who it was. I might have looked at a stranger, but you come from a culture that I come from, everybody knows what the next move is, right? It's retaliation. So I knew how to find him. I kind of followed his journey, prior when I was hurt, right? But when I was healed, I never thought about it. So when they brought it, here's information. Now, I didn't know when it was going to happen. So now let me tell you how the world works and the universe works and how powerful things are, right? Man, I got tested so much that day, I wanted to call quits. So we had been filming all week. My journey of like living the street life and stuff, I had 2 real close cousins. We all did our little thing, but we was close, man. We was definitely close. The morning of, one of my cousins passed away. He passed away, he had a battle with diabetes, it just went left. Passed away. Close cousin, homie, right?
Wow.
Couldn't handle it. We're filming, you probably done dealt with some stuff where you got to hold your grief till later, right?
You got to play. You still got to go play.
So that was that. The pressure was on, right? And so, of course, we're doing all this filming all day, so it helped. Then I had this time where it was downtime. And so at this time, now I'm crying, I'm grieving, I'm like, I want to be with my family because my family getting together. But I can't be around nobody because I'm filming. And so then, like an hour later, I hop in the car with Guy Karamo, right? We riding around, and Karamo like, hey, this is what we about to do. And I'm like, I can't do it. And I remember texting the producer while I'm in the car, hey, I can't do this. I done lost my cousin today. I mean, I'm all messed up. Like, I'm definitely messed up. And the producer said, Wes, go, we were at like a coffee shop down the street. She said, man, go in the back, pray. Try to release something and let me know how you feel. And I went in back, and at this time, I wasn't really like so much godly yet. Like I was very much had faith, but I wasn't like praying. Like I had never like been like that in-depth prayer. So I went back and I talked to my cousin. I said, hey, man.
Oh, wow.
I said, hey, I don't know why you left me today, but I know I'm doing something that's powerful. I know I'm doing something that I'm supposed to do. And I don't know if you're supposed to be there with me, but I need you there with me. And I remember like we got to the spot and everybody see it. Everything was so natural. So you see me roll in, I got this little confused face. Like it's kind of like, I don't know. And then I felt something over me and I knew that I was okay. And what I also want to share is like coming from Kansas City, I didn't care that we was on TV. If it was going to go down, it was going to go down. So on the back of my head.
He was even talking like, the way he was talking, I was like, oh, he does not care about this camera.
You know what I mean? But I think but that's why I say like me understanding that there was something bigger, me taking that loss and still being able to move forward. I just knew that this moment was going to happen, and maybe it was my ability to take that edge off that made the conversation become more comfortable. I remember going in there and just having this feeling, seeing them and asking them why, and that's what.
That was your first time ever
talking to him, and I was like, man, I just want to know why you did it, and he shared it, and I just shared the story, right? And so his reference was that he pulled up, knew whatever information he got. Once he pulled up, took that information and also seen my best friend with his gun.
Yeah.
So he said, I'm gonna preserve a life, and it wasn't mine, right? And so that was such an understandable situation for me because of the life I lived before. Like I had grown so much mentally that I understood that I would have did the same thing if the shoe was on the other foot. So how could I judge somebody when I had that same mentality? That's what it was for me. It was that so many people look at black men, and don't look at us as forgiving men. Don't look at us as comforting or anything, like caring, loving. We have to be negative. Like, that's been the stigma my whole life, and that's the stigma I embody, right? Well, now I was creating my own identity, and I didn't care if I was dying that day. I just, if something went down, I didn't care about none of that, man. I already knew I was a vessel years ago. Like, I knew I was a vessel. Like, life, whatever this life I'm having, these doors I'm opening, man, I'm a vessel for the work that I'm doing. So that's how I came. That's how I felt. So when I sat there, I didn't care what his actions were, as long as I knew that I was going to let him know what I had been telling the world for the last 4 years. That man gave me life when he tried to take my life. And so him explaining it, me saying I understand, and then the next thing was, hey, do you want to apology from Maurice?
Apologize, and
I said, no. Nah. I just want to tell you thank you, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be me.
What did that feel like in that moment to even say that? Because we can, how they say everybody got a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, that's your moment. That is the moment that you've been manifesting, the thing that you've been saying this whole time. How did that feel to actually say the words to the person? I
was relieved. You know what I mean? And I watched his relief. See, that's the thing. It's like I felt his energy. And I saw that weight lifted off his shoulders. I heard the growth in his voice. He had did prison for about 5 years due to shooting me. But you could tell there was a lot of growth within him and me. We understood that maybe our paths were supposed to intertwine. I don't know what he's doing this day, but what I can say is that I hope that it brought him value to know that there wasn't any hate in my heart, which allowed the people behind me to back off, and hopefully the people behind him to back off, because most people feed off the main person's energy, right? Yeah. And if we could do something bigger, then that's what it was. And so for me, I felt relief, but I also knew, as I said, I'm a vessel. If you don't ever see black men apologizing or thanking each other on TV, and if I have a platform and I know where I was born and raised and where I come from, then I'm gonna use it. And I'm not going to be a person that speaks something that I don't truly believe. And if I speak and say, all right, I can tell this man, thank you for giving and doing this, then I'm going to show that, because I have a whole community of people that need to see that so they can learn how to heal themselves instead of suppressing their pain.
You are definitely living that ideal, the ideal of becoming the thing, right? Like the thing that we're all, man, I don't even know. I feel like I'm lost in your story, because you did something to me just now when you started talking about your cousin. I went to a place just now when you were talking about that. But watching your story, and you're doing more now in a wheelchair than you could, or that you did while you were walking. And you've been an example to so many people. Like, let me list off some of the things that you've done, all right? So people can understand what I'm talking about. So, bodybuilding champion, right? So, CrossFit, all the things. You're recognized as a CNN hero, featured in Men's Health. I mean, we just keep going and going. But, like, what are you most proud of that you've achieved so far?
Knowing who I am. Like, no, my whole life, until I knew who I was, I couldn't live free. I believe I'm free. Like, I don't just move without knowing and having that understanding that I'm free. And I might be physically limited, but I'm free. And the only way I could have been free is if I did, by knowing myself. And I think that was the hardest battle, because I had put on a mask to be an image based off of other people's perceptions. And when I started to perceive the life I wanted, I became the image that I wanted. And I think that's my biggest accomplishment, because knowing who I am allows me to serve freely. There's nothing tied to the work that I do. I mean, you get paid sometimes, right? But I don't think the work that I did, like, that wasn't the drive for it. It was me knowing myself and my journey, and that I could help other people along that way. So I think like just knowing that I built that foundation and the steps that it took is the biggest accomplishment for me. All those, I always tell people all the time, I don't go off of titles. Like when I see it, it's like, man, I feel like Game of Thrones. I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but like
sure.
I'm like, man, they might well give me one of them king names. You know what I mean? Like, you know, because there's like all these different titles. You're like, dang, are they done yet? Right? Like master of this, opening up door, like. And that's how I feel when you throw out my titles, right? But I'm just Wesley Hamilton because I'm proud enough and aware enough to own my own name, right? And I didn't own my name when I was younger. I didn't even like Wesley. I didn't like it. Like when people always like, you want Wes or Wesley? I'm like, it's your choice because I like them both. But when I was growing up, I needed a nickname. You know, I would try to create an alias because I couldn't embody that being. Who I was. I was trying to be somebody else. So I could never accept that name, right? That identity that I was tied to. So when I created myself and my reality, I embody who I am. And that was my name first.
Wow. Your name is really powerful. My first name is Ifeanyi. What that means is nothing is impossible with God. That has shaped the route of my journey up until this point. Everything I've done, even my mom, I was talking to her the other day and I was trying to figure out, there's a decision I was trying to make. I'm like, I don't know which way to turn. Like either way, this is a tough decision and this could mean a big shift in my career. My mom always speaking life into me. She said, you are a child of miracles. That's why they named me that. She said, whatever you choose, it's always going to work out. So I always think it's so important. Like even your daughter's name. Yeah. It's backwards spelled heaven. Yeah. It's incredible, man. Is that something that you knew? Like, is that the idea that your name is power?
Yeah, I named my daughter, so I definitely knew growing up that was a name I wanted to name my little girl. I didn't understand how powerful names were, but I didn't understand how powerful words were. And it's funny that you share your name, because I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous, because like all my friends that are like, from Africa or something do have meaningful names. And so I always tell people like, man, Wesley was probably my slave name.
There you go, man. You ever look it up, see what it means?
No, because it does seem like a name that really was aligned with my culture.
You never know.
You never know. But at the same time, I feel like I freed myself from whatever that name was tied to that was negative. So like what I do is talk about ownership of my name. Maybe I did take ownership of something that my ancestors was bounded by.
Did your mom name you that?
My mom did name me that, but my mom didn't really have an explanation of like really break down like, oh, like me and my brother has the same initials. I think that was the biggest part, like WMH. Like I think that was it. But other than that, like my sister's name was something that was kind of biblical, so it could have been around that. But at the same time, like I never grew up thinking that my name meant something. You know what I mean? Like I always felt like it was out of place. I didn't find that many black people with the name Wesley at first. So everybody just called me Wesley Snipes. Like, oh, Wesley Snipes. I'm like, that's the only Wesley, So I always felt like out of place. Like I couldn't be a Mike or a John or something, call me Robert at least.
It's so funny because when we're growing up, we always want to fit in. Like even me changing my accent. When I came here, I was African. My accent was really strong and I didn't really like talking in public. It wasn't until I changed my accent completely. When you come around me and my family and you see us talking, people be around us, even girls be around, like, why don't you talk like that more often? You know what I mean? It's just this idea that like when we grow up, we start to value our uniqueness, right? I want to switch topics a little bit, switch angles. I saw this video that's been going viral the past couple of days. This woman that was she was trying to get on the plane, or she was getting through the plane, and she was struggling, having to pull herself through the aisle. I don't know if you've seen this. It's crazy how many areas in life they're still not wheelchair accessible. And I noticed that myself when I was in the wheelchair. Yeah. I went to Germany and I was in the wheelchair. Dude, we went to the museum and there was no path. Like literally my brothers had to pull me on stone. Wow. Like I was like, dang. And it's crazy because sometimes I feel like God changes your perspective in life. I'm 6'11". Yeah. Right? God changes your perspective. I'm sitting down. I'm probably 4 feet tall. God changed your perspective so that you can see something else. You can understand other people's views.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, wow. My family and I, we own a school now for special needs kids.
Oh, nice.
And so now we're doing that work, trying to understand what it's like, because we want to do that for kids in Africa.
Yeah,
Imagine
absolutely.
if you're struggling with wheelchair accessibility here, imagine what it's like in a third world country. And so I want to give people, my job with my platform in any regard is to give people opportunity, because I feel like as a kid, I got opportunity. So do you feel like, what would you say is the biggest struggle with the wheelchair, and what can we do to create change around the issue?
The biggest, good question. The biggest struggle with wheelchair, and again, I need people to understand too that there are so many different disabilities that are aligned with wheelchair users. So as you referenced the lady that was on the plane, I did witness that video. I want to say she had a spinal cord injury just like me. So when you have a spinal cord injury, you don't have any motor function from the waist down. So it does make it, you're more immobile, right? Like there are wheelchair users that can get up, but they have to use it for more of a mobility device. So understand that. So the biggest issue when it comes to wheelchair users is awareness, because most people, especially airlines, well, if you see more people, and I'm sure you fly a lot, so normally you see a lot of the older people roll the wheelchairs at the very front, then they the first ones to get on.
Right.
Well, when you're assisting, and that's your job to assist, and that's all you see, you're not aware of someone like me that says, well, my legs don't move, right? So now the process is different. You're not asking me, hey, can you walk to the plane? Like, no, I need you to lift me up. I need you to put me in this aisle chair, right? Now I have to be an advocate for myself. So I think the biggest issue of anything when it comes to accessibility is awareness, right? Like I wasn't aware of disability when I acquired mine.
Yeah.
So I hated it. Like I was welcoming new life that I didn't even understand, right? It's not if, but when people will have a disability in their life. You dealt with it for 6 months, right? And so if we become more aware, then we'll create the access, right? Because accessibility just starts off with access. But if the access isn't there, it's because we lack awareness. And when we have awareness, then we know that it will happen to us sometime in life.
Absolutely.
Right? And so then we create those structures. And that's the best way that I can break it down for anybody. It's that if you want to create change, you have to be aware of the problems. And the problems are normally us. Because even with accessibility, if we're not mentally good, right, then we are defeating people by our thoughts, right? So then you got people that go in a room, right? I always tell people all the time, like, the whole building can be accessible, but the mindsets aren't. So now I'm facing perceptions of people thinking I'm less than, but I can go push this button and go in this door and I can go do this, but everybody else, you see what I mean? And so now it goes back to that defeating stage because they aren't aware of independence within a wheelchair or with the disability. So now it's like, oh, like that lady that was hopping around, like and she mentioned it, like, they told her that she couldn't be in the front, even though the front was, it's like, that's how people see it because they aren't aware. They don't aware that they could go outside, get in a car accident. Now they facing the same thing we are. You don't have to be dealt with gun violence, right? Like I got a friend that got a spinal cord injury from a tumor. The only reason why I'm sharing this is for people to understand that it happens to the everyday people that think that nothing's going to happen to you.
Wow. I got a question for the young men that feel like they're not going to make it out, that don't have hope. Because you said in an Instagram post that if this incident wouldn't have happened, you probably would have died or went to jail because the streets just had a hold on you. You were looking for leadership. What advice, now that you are a leader, now that you are a voice, now that you are somebody who is healing, has healed, is continuing his journey on just being the man that his daughter will be proud of, Superman. What advice would you give those young men on how they can make it out?
I don't want to be as simple with this word, but I feel like that's the only thing that came to my mind as I was listening to you speak was that, and this is how I would say it because I want to put it in like, my brother, my brother that, you feel that you can't get out of the streets, that you feel that you're trapped beyond your circumstances. You don't have any hope. I ask you, Have you ever started to love yourself first? I ask you, have you ever spoke words that empowered you beyond the words that defeat you by others? Have you ever gave yourself time to just be aware of who you want to be in this world, not how the world wants you to be? Because when you become and understand those things, your life will change and you'll get out the trap that you've been in your whole life. That's my advice.
Damn. Man, I'm so grateful for this episode because in every show, there's always a point where somebody's sharing their story and I can feel what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. I feel like everything you talked about today, I can feel everything. When you were talking about your cousin, mm-hmm. when you talk about where you came from, talking about leaving the house at a young age, talking about your daughter and the love that you have for her and that inspiration that you have in you. You're definitely a beast. I'll give you that for sure. My last question to every podcast is the same. It is, if you now could talk to young Wesley that hated his name, that couldn't find a role model, that was angry and didn't have hope, was trying to figure it out, product of his environment. If you could talk to him, what would you say to him?
Talk to old Wesley. West back then. I talked to West back then. I think the main thing that I would say would be have you took time to know you? Have you took time to love you? And again, I'm coming from the point of already being lost, because I think in my whole life I was lost and never knew what direction I could go in. But I always say that if someone, I give it to people, but even if I was aware of self-love, if I was aware of creating an identity, then that would have shifted my whole life. And so it's not, oh man, life is going to get better, follow the journey. Like, life changes when you become aware of who you are. Then that'd be the only thing I tell them, because that journey, it could be 50 years old and now you're ready to step up. But once you become aware of who you are, your life change. And that's the only advice. No money tied to it, no fake. It's all inside. You figure out who you are from the inside out, and everything on the outside changes.
Man, this has been everything and more than what I expected it to be. My dog. Thank you, man.
Hey, I
appreciate you so much, man. This is amazing. I gotta go listen to this back because I'm like, man, what is going on? You're listening to it when you're editing, Bob. But holy moly, dog, you're so inspiring, man. And man, if there's any way I can support you along this way, man, please let me know. One of my big visions for the podcast and for this movement is eventually I'm going to have people just come speak.
Nice.
And I'll have kids or whatever. I'm going to have people just start holding events where people can come speak and speak life into communities that need to be educated, right? So they can learn about, being, I don't even know where you go to learn about being a dietitian. How does that even come to somebody's mind? Like that kind of stuff to me is amazing. Like people need to know that stuff. And it's crazy because I never even thought that people wouldn't know about proteins, and
carbs, fats, sugars, right?
There's so much that we got to teach people, bro. And so thank you for just being willing, man, just coming out to the studio and really just wanting to share your story. Because, man, like I'm fired up right now. I'm like, man, what can I do?
Hey, that's what's up.
Yeah, thank you for that, dog. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Festus here. I hope you liked that episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and here's some more episodes that you might like. On this side.